Imagine you're walking through the bustling streets of medieval Paris. The year is 1250. You can hear the clamor of merchants, the clatter of horse-drawn carts, and the magnificent bells of Notre Dame ringing in the distance. It's a city of soaring cathedrals, burgeoning universities, and vibrant markets. But beneath this veneer of Gothic splendor lies a daily struggle that shaped the life of every single Parisian. The desperate, never-ending quest for clean water. Today we take it for granted. We turn on a tap and out it flows, clean, safe, and seemingly infinite. But for the people of medieval Paris, this simple act was the stuff of dreams. Their world was defined not by what they had, but by what they lacked. And what they lacked most was water. So how did a city built on the banks of a mighty river, the Seine, find itself so desperately thirsty? Let's dive into the murky waters of medieval Paris and find out. In the early Middle Ages, Paris was a much smaller city. The Seine River was relatively clean, and most people lived close enough to its banks to fetch water directly. Simple, right? But as Paris grew, so did its problems. By the 13th century, under the reign of King Philip Augustus, the city was exploding. New walls were built, the Louvre was constructed as a fortress, and the population swelled to over 200,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in Europe. This rapid growth had a catastrophic effect on the city's water source. The Seine, once a lifeline, became a dumping ground. Tanneries on the riverbanks discharged foul-smelling chemicals and animal waste. Butcher shops located in a district gruesomely known as the écorcherie or skinning place would simply toss entrails and blood into the water. Dyers colored their fabrics with toxic substances and washed the excess right into the river. And let's not forget the most personal source of pollution, human waste. With no widespread sewage system, cesspits overflowed, and waste often found its way into the streets and inevitably into the Seine. The river became a toxic soup, a breeding ground for diseases like dysentery and typhoid. Drinking directly from the Seine became a life-threatening gamble. So if you couldn't drink from the river, what were your options? Well, that depended heavily on who you were. For the wealthy elite, the nobles, high-ranking clergy, and rich merchants, life was a little easier. They could afford to have private wells dug in their courtyards, tapping into the groundwater beneath the city. While this water was generally safer than the river, it wasn't perfect. The same ground that held the water also absorbed the filth from the city's overflowing cesspits, so contamination was a constant risk. For the vast majority of Parisians, the 99%, a private well was an unimaginable luxury. Their daily life revolved around public sources of water. The earliest and most famous of these were the public fountains. The Romans had built aqueducts to supply ancient Lutetia, as Paris was then called. But these had fallen into disrepair over the centuries. It wasn't until the late 12th century that King Philip Augustus began a concerted effort to provide public water. He had the old Roman aqueducts partially repaired, and new ones built to bring spring water from the hills outside the city. Like from Belleville and Le Pré Saint-Gervais into public fountains. The Fontaine des Innocents, originally built in the 12th century, was perhaps the most famous. Imagine a central hub, a social gathering point where people didn't just collect water, but also exchanged news, gossip, and stories. These fountains were lifelines, but they were far from adequate. There were only a handful of them to serve a population of hundreds of thousands. This scarcity created a new and vital profession, the water carrier, or porteur d'eau. These were hardy, working-class men and women who would spend their entire day hauling water. They would fill up their large wooden buckets at the public fountains, or, more riskily, from less polluted upstream sections of the Seine, and then trudge through the crowded, muddy streets, selling their precious cargo door to door. You'd hear their distinctive cries echoing through the neighborhoods, "Allô, allô," or "Water, water." For a small fee, they would fill your household buckets. The price could fluctuate based on demand, the season, or even the time of day. This was a tough job. The buckets were incredibly heavy, weighing up to 40 pounds each, and they would carry 2 at a time on a wooden yoke across their shoulders. It was back-breaking labor, but it was essential. Without the water carriers, many Parisian households would have simply gone without. They were the circulatory system of the city. delivering life, one bucket at a time. But even with the water carriers, getting enough water was a constant challenge. A typical family needed water for everything: drinking, cooking, washing, and cleaning. The amount a water carrier could deliver was often just enough for the bare essentials. Bathing, for instance, was a luxury. While public bathhouses or études did exist, they were often associated with immoral behavior and were expensive. For most people, a full-body wash was a rare event. Personal hygiene was limited to washing hands and face in a small basin. The lack of clean water had profound consequences for public health. Medieval doctors didn't understand germ theory, but they did notice a connection between foul water and sickness. They advised boiling water before drinking it, a practice that undoubtedly saved many lives, even if they didn't know why. But boiling required fuel, wood or charcoal, which was also expensive. For the poor, making the choice between buying food, fuel, or clean water was a daily dilemma. This constant struggle also bred innovation and community action. Monasteries, often located on the outskirts of the city, were pioneers in water management. They had the resources and knowledge to build their own sophisticated systems of wells, cisterns, and even small-scale aqueducts to bring in clean water for their gardens, kitchens, and infirmaries. The Abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, for example, was known for its well-managed water supply. The city authorities, prodded by the king, also made continuous, if slow, efforts. They passed regulations trying to limit the pollution of the Seine. Though these were incredibly difficult to enforce, they would periodically fund the construction of new fountains or the repair of old ones. It was a constant battle, an arms race between the city's growth and its ability to provide for its citizens. What about rain? Couldn't they just collect rainwater? Yes, and many did. Households would use barrels and cisterns to capture runoff from their roofs. This water was great for washing or watering a small garden, but it wasn't always reliable or safe for drinking. Roofs were often covered in soot, bird droppings, and other grime, making the collected water impure. So, let's put it all together. Picture a day in the life of a medieval Parisian artisan. You wake up at dawn. The first thing on your mind is water. Is the household bucket empty? If so, you listen for the cry of the water carrier, hoping you have a coin to pay him. Or you send your wife or one of your older children on the long walk to the nearest public fountain. They might have to wait in line for an hour, jostling with neighbors, all desperate for the same limited resource. Once the water is home, it's carefully rationed. A little for making the morning gruel, a little for a quick wash of the hands. The rest is saved for cooking the evening meal. Every drop is precious. You go to your workshop, and your work, whether you're a baker, a blacksmith, or a weaver, also requires water. It's a resource that dictates the rhythm of your day, your health, and your livelihood. This struggle wasn't unique to Paris, but the city's sheer size and density made the problem particularly acute. It's a powerful reminder that the great achievements of an era, the art, the architecture, the philosophy, are all built upon a foundation of basic human needs. Without access to something as simple as clean water, society itself begins to break down. The situation only began to truly improve centuries later, with the grand engineering projects of the 19th century under Baron Haussmann, which finally brought a modern water and sewer system to Paris. But the memory of that long, thirsty struggle is embedded in the city's history, in the names of its streets, and in the old public fountains that still stand today, no longer as lifelines, but as beautiful monuments to a time when a simple drink of water was a hard-won prize. It gives you a whole new appreciation for the infrastructure hidden beneath our feet, doesn't it? The next time you turn on your tap, maybe take a second to think of the medieval water carrier, hauling his heavy buckets through the muddy streets of Paris, making life in the great city possible. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into medieval Paris interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the hidden corners of history. See you next time.